So thank you all for welcoming me here today. These are her slides, and I'm going to do my best to do her work justice. At the International Energy Research Center, we have 4 areas of strategic research. Most of them are on technologies like microgrids, energy efficiency, and carbon management. But we also have an area that we call smart cities and communities, which is very much about empowering the energy citizen, which is the top objective that's come out in the energy white paper for the Irish government this year. And so what I want to talk to you today about is the project that Long put together, and she got it funded on her own. She's marshaled all the resources about how you use crowdsourcing to do things that typically you would do by hiring all the people that you need, buying all the resources. So this is the agenda. I just want to show you that this is where Cork is, right here, where the red circle is, and London is somewhere over here. So I've had a good travel, uneventful, which is always good for travel. And happy to be here. So I'm going to talk to you about the project, how we used crowdsourcing and what methodology we used, and what the respondents were, and sort of the benefits that came out of that. Cork is a city of about, Cork and its outlying areas is about, I'd say 120,000 to 150,000 people. The island of Ireland only has about 4.5 to 5 million people on it. There's more cows and sheep on the island than there are people, which makes a lovely drive through the country and the mountains. But we have really dense areas in 2 places, one of which is Dublin, as you can imagine, and the other one is Cork. And so we wanted to see what happens when you try to take a city like Cork, which is considered the second city, and turn it into a smart city, a lead city like Dublin. What can you do? What can you do for that? And so we got together with the Cork Smart Gateway Group, who is now looking at how to turn Cork into a smart city with some of their own projects. We engaged stakeholders from the University College Cork, the Cork Institute of Technology, and the Tyndall National Institute, and then some others which I'll talk about. And the area that we actually looked at was this CAPS area here in blue, the blue outline. So what happens is that Cork City is a nice little city. You can walk across the city in about 45 minutes. It's very lovely. It's on the River Lee. It's beautiful, but it has a lot of people in the city area. The minute that you go outside the city, there's hardly anybody. So if you're going to institute things like a digital infrastructure or these platforms that Robin talked about, how are you going to get the people that are in the isolated areas involved, right? You have to have some pretty clever tech to do that, but it's more than the technology. It's about getting the people engaged. So I can show up on a farmer's land and I can, give him a smartphone and I can show him all the really cool apps, but he's a busy person and he hasn't got time to learn new tech that isn't going to provide him an immediate benefit. So what we wanted to find out is how many people in the Cork area and the surrounding area actually are engaging with the digital infrastructure, and how many people do we still need to reach out to? And this is really about the strategic idea of growing Cork as a smart city. So these were our objectives. So it was all about bringing in the residents and the citizens, and it was about really setting up a baseline of data for the Cork Smart Gateway, and then selecting some quantifiable indicators. So these were the measured indicators. These are sort of typical of what you would imagine if you wanted to find people using your digital infrastructure. But what we really also wanted to know is there's a very large number of expatriates like myself that live in Cork, and wanted to know how their lives as an immigrant or as a person not a native, how that's being affected by what's available to them. Does it make a difference? So we collected some facts and we formed the project around those facts. So we looked at cost, design, and different deployment mechanisms. Again, we needed something where we didn't have to hire a bunch of people who could then go out and collect data, who could then do a lot of data analysis, who, then we have to do something with them once the project was over, right? So Long thought about this and she said, well, why don't, she's at University College Cork doing her PhD now, so she thought, why don't I just get some of my colleagues there, kind of see what they would think about being a volunteer to help me collect some of this data. And then before you knew it, she had like 100 volunteers. And then she thought, there's a real project in here. And so it turns out that it allowed us to commit some resources, but not have to commit like employment contracts and insurance and all those kinds of things, right? But then we also had a benefit for the volunteers, which was that now they become ambassadors for the Cork Smart Gateway. Ireland is doing their 100-year census this year in 2016, so now they have training on how to do census for that. And they have a lot of visibility into the whole area around Cork and where they fit into it in terms of the technology and just the region. So here's some literature on this. I'm sure most of you all are very familiar with this, much more than I am. But the idea was that we wanted to look at how we could use crowdsourcing to collect the data that tells us about how people are engaging with the digital infrastructure. And then what would they do with that if they could engage? And these are some of our rules for taking care of that. So we wanted to pick the right model for doing it. So we didn't want to just tell people this is what you're going to do. But we did want to sort of direct them in the right way. But we used the inputs from the volunteers to say what were the kinds of questions that we should be asking. So the volunteers had input, the local universities had input, we talked to the city councils, the county councils, the Census Bureau, so we talked to a bunch of people who had inputs into the kind of information that they would be interested in. And then of course, so Long uses KISS, as she says, keep it simple and straightforward, but I'm American, so we say keep it simple, stupid. So she's much nicer. But that was the idea, that when you put out a survey, like the one we put out, it was only 26 questions, but we needed to form them in such a way that people sort of knew what they were answering. And then the power of the decider, which was all of the stakeholders, not just us with the project. So we wanted to make that powerful and directive, but not absolute. So here's kind of a picture of sort of what we were looking at. So these are all the stakeholders that we engaged. And the local government right now has the largest stake in this, as you can imagine. But what we really want to do with this is turn that big arrow into everybody's big arrow, okay? Just quickly, these are more stakeholders. So we did 5 survey sets. So we looked at the public, and representative and non-representatives. So the non-representatives were the people who were very digital savvy, tech savvy. They could go online, they could take the survey online, they knew how to use their smartphones. The representative ones were the ones that were in those isolated outlying areas that we really wanted to understand where they were coming from. We had a survey for the seniors and youth, 15 to 18. These are nearly voting age people, and they were going to make a big difference in the next census. And then, of course, we worked with the officials that were in the different officials' offices. This is one group of the volunteers, so they were very happy and rosy-faced, and they were having a great time with this. And then this was an infographic that we passed out. So I just really want to say here that when we started this, everybody said, well, nobody's going to answer the survey because people don't like you knocking on their doors. But we had all these really fresh-faced volunteers. We gave them maps. They went out. They did 20 surveys a day, so it didn't tire them out too much. And, you know, people in Ireland are very friendly. And if they have a nice, youthful person coming to their house in pairs, of course, knocking on the door and saying, we're doing something that is going to help you realize the benefits of the money that is being spent on the digital infrastructure in the city, most people were very interested in that. And it turns out that we got nearly 3,600 respondents, which is amazing. Which amounted to about 600 hours of people time. If you were to pay somebody to do that, you would have to spend nearly 5,500 euros to employ someone. So we've saved the city quite a lot of money in the very beginning. And these were so for us, this works because we realized that it costs at least 3 times cheaper to do it through the crowd rather than doing it through people. We got an estimate from one data collection company, and they wanted to do 1,500 respondents, and it was going to cost something like 17,000 euros. So we did it for a lot less. And it was creative, nimble. We got everybody's inputs. The surveys were a real success. We could deploy them at any time. We didn't have to deploy them at any given time range. The volunteers could come in, get their packs, take them out to the CAPS areas, and then go and collect the survey information. And the data was really quite reliable because we trained the volunteers at the kind of information we were looking for. So these are just some information down here at their direct impacts. You can just kind of see that we got a lot of hits on Twitter, LinkedIn, and through the students' unions at the universities.